So, what's up, online a push people? So today we are doing our first lesson in our chapter called Culture, Society, and Reform. We mentioned yesterday in the introduction video that these reform movements and these reform policies were directed from a religious awakening. And that's exactly what we are going to be tackling today. We are going to be tackling the Second Great Awakening. Remember, the First Great Awakening was before the Revolutionary War with John Winthrop and all those people, those Puritans. Now it's the Second Great Awakening. We are in the early decades of the 19th century. So religious revivals swept the United States during this time period. They were partially a reaction to rationalism, belief in human reason that had been the fashion during the Enlightenment and the American Revolution. Calvinist Puritan teachings of original sin and predestinations had been rejected by believers in more liberal and forgiving doctrines, such as those of the Unitarian Church. So we see these religious revivals really spurring up. Calvinism began a counterattack against these liberal views in the 1790s. The Second Great Awakening began among educated people such as Reverend Timothy Dwight, president of Yale College in Connecticut. Dwight's campus revivals motivated a generation of young men to become evangelical preachers. In the revivals of the early 1800s, successful preachers were audience-centered and easily understood by the uneducated. They spoke about the opportunity for salvation to all. So there's a few key points I want to mention. Audience centered and easily understood by the uneducated. What does that mean? So these preachers wanted to get the word out for everybody, so everybody can hear about these teachings in these religious revivals, and they are spurring up future preachers. So we are going to talk about a few groups today, and we are going to wrap this up. The first topic is revivalism in New York. In 1823, Presbyterian minister Charles G. Finney started a series of revivals in upstate New York, where many New Englanders had settled. Instead of delivering sermons based on rational argument, Finney appealed to people's emotions and fear of damnation. He prompted thousands to publicly declare their revitalized faith. He preached that every individual could be saved through faith and hard work, ideas that strongly appealed to the rising middle class. Because of Finney's influence, Western New York became known as the Burned Over District for its frequent hell and brimstone revivals. So, what does that mean? His revivals were powerful and it spurred all over upstate New York. So, I'm not here to teach you guys about religion. I'm not here to do that. I'm here to teach you guys about the impact religion had on American history. So don't get that confused. I'm not teaching religion. You don't need to know all of these religious types and what they believe in. You need to know how they impacted American politics, American society. Right now, we are learning how they impacted the reform movement, the reform aspect of the 19th century. The second group of faith-based people we are talking about is the Baptist and Methodist. So in the South and on the advancing western frontier, Baptist and Methodist circuit preachers such as Peter Cartwright would travel from one location to another and attract thousands to hear their dramatic preaching at outdoor revivals or camp meetings. These preachers activated the faith of many people who had never belonged to the church. By 1850, the Baptist and Methodist was the largest Protestant domination in the country. So their goal was to get as many people to the church as possible, right? So millennialism. Much of the religious enthusiasm at the time was based on the widespread belief that the world was about to end with the second coming of Jesus. So they thought the world was about to end. So they needed to get right with Jesus or whoever they believed is their higher power. One preacher, William Miller, gained tens of thousands of followers by predicting a specific date for the second coming, October 21st, 1844. This is what this preacher declared was the date of the second coming of Jesus Christ. Nothing happened on the appointed day, but the Millerites continued as a new Christian denomination, the Seventh-day Adventist. The last religious sect we are talking about, the religious group, sect meaning group we are talking about today is the Mormons. Another religious group, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or Mormons, was followed by Joseph Smith in 1830. Smith based his religious thinking on a book of scripture, the Book of Mormon, which traced a connection between the American Indians and the lost tribe of Israel. Smith gathered a following in New York and moved to Ohio, then Missouri, and finally Illinois. There, the Mormon founder was murdered by a local mob. To escape persecution, the Mormons, under the leadership of Brigham Young, migrated to the far western frontier, where they established the New Zion, their religious community in Salt Lake City in Utah. So this is why Salt Lake City in Utah gets its jokes and stuff about being the Mormon capital of the world, because really it's the Mormon capital of the world. Their corporate social organizations helped the Mormons to prosper in the willingness. Their practice of allowing a man to have more than one wife, however, aroused the hostility of the U.S. government. So that was one of their main beliefs back then, allowing a man to have more than one wife. The Second Great Awakening, like the first, caused new divisions in society between the newer evangelistical sects and the older Protestant church. So this great divide between new and old. It affected all sections of the country, but in the northern states, from Massachusetts to Ohio, the Great Awakening also torched off social reforms. And that's what we are going to talk about in the next few days. So see you guys next time.